So good afternoon, everybody, to this WEConversations session online, as usual, on a very important topic for the HR service industry, on quality jobs and what it means in Europe, but also worldwide. We are very pleased to have Stefan Olsson together with us, but for the opening, I give the floor to Mina Meleri, our director. Mina, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and indeed, warm welcome to all to this WEConversation on behalf of World Employment Confederation. We are very pleased to have with us Stefan Olsson from DG Employment European Commission. We have Ludovica Matarazzo from Assolavoro, our Italian National Federation, and Tom Hadley as our long-term expert and collaborator with us. And I would like to start by really thanking the European Commission for leading this focus this year on quality jobs. I mean, starting from the roadmap that was published last year, we know that there is a big focus and momentum in Brussels and in the European Union this year to work together and to advance that conversation and co-designing of what will become the Quality Jobs Act at the end of this year. So I'm sure this is not the first and not the last conversation, but as Michael already pointed out, it's really important and key for our industry to focus on the quality jobs and on all those elements that is composed of it in today's labor markets in transition. So we know it has links to AI at work, different subcontracting and other dimensions. So it's a very rich conversation, and we really want to play our part in that and bring our contribution into it. So I would say that without further ado, we can dive into the topic. It's also meant to be very interactive. We look forward to hearing where the current thinking of the European Commission is, hearing from national stakeholders in our network and all the broader ecosystem players as well. So I would encourage also all participants to put questions and comments into the chat and raise your hands towards the end when we have time for questions and answers. So with that, I would like to give it back to you, Michael. I think you will lead us through this session today. And thanks again, everyone, for being there.
Thank you very much, Mina. And indeed, I'm going to be the master of ceremony today. And I would like to hand over directly to Stefan Olsson, Deputy Director of DG Employment European Commission, who has been really the leading voice and mind behind the Quality Jobs Roadmap and Act. And Stefan, over to you for your intervention and presentation on what is in the planning and what is coming up on the Quality Jobs Act.
Thank you very much, Mina and Michael, and hello to everybody. I'm looking forward to a nice conversation. I mean, this format is quite nice because it means I don't have to make a long speech, but I can take up some key issues, and then we can listen to the other speakers and have a discussion. So first of all, I think the initiative of quality jobs came when we started this Ursula von der Leyen II Commission. It was very clear in the overall framework that she presented, and then in the mission letter to my executive vice president Roxana Minsato. And we took this, then at that stage we were talking about the Quality Jobs Roadmap, and we took this very seriously in terms of consultation, in terms of discussion. Also, we had an ongoing social partner process in parallel, so I'll come back to that. But it was very, I think the concept of quality jobs as a core value in terms of competitiveness in all the competitiveness compass linked to skills was very important, and also this how do we in this rapidly changing technological legal geopolitical context, how do we ensure that the EU continues to base itself on quality jobs as its as a competitive advantage. And we then went out to actually all member states. We did that a bit on the pillar of social rights. We had a massive consultation many years ago, but this time we saw social partners in all member states, and I had the privilege of doing some of those meetings. And it was very interesting to discuss these issues openly and very, not with any preset conditions, with social partners all over Europe. And that then fed into the quality jobs roadmap that came out at the end of last year. In parallel, we had the State of the Union of our president, where she indicated the aim of launching so that the roadmap would be implemented in its own right, but it would also launch a further consultation beyond what was going on the right to disconnect and telework on a number of other issues. So that was launched in parallel, and that consultation, as you know very well, is ongoing. So that also continues to feed and lead to this discussion. In parallel to that, there are many parallels. We of course have the whole competitiveness agenda. We have the omnibuses and the burden reduction target of 25%. So all of this is going hand in hand, and we need to, with your help, input from all social partners, we need to see what are the real challenges, how do we best take things forward, at what level, by whom. So it's I think it's very interesting. I would argue that it is less that it is really an open process. And I would like to thank you in the World Employment Confederation also for addressing it like this, to take part in it with facts and how you see the situation. If I go in a bit more in detail, on the different areas, of course we have the issue of creating and maintaining quality jobs. We're quite aware that the European Commission will not create any jobs, but what we can do together with social partners, national authorities, and most of all business, is of course to create an environment where business, from the self-employed to startups to small firms, can innovate, grow, and attract investment and talent. And there are many initiatives in this context. If I take one, the battery booster package, for example, but there are many others. And in the union of skills, of course, there is a big buy-in from business at all levels, with, I think it's something like now 3,200 participants pledging millions and millions of trainings. So, but it's not enough, because the change goes so fast in the economy. So we need to continue this very positive process. Then we have, of course, the challenge and opportunity of new technologies, AI leading that, but we have robotization. We have a number of spin-offs, so to say, of this. And that it creates opportunities, but it also means that we have to reassess a bit issue of risks of challenges. I mean, I think the robotization, for example, is of course something that contributes a lot to health and safety, and AI as well can help a lot. What we see in warehouses or mines, or so we can really create a cleaner, less heavy workplace. At the same time, we need to ensure that the lack of control, or perceived lack of control, lack of human oversight, involvement, perceived or real, does not create new challenges, like, for example, stress and psychosocial risks in that. And that's a joint process that we need to do in order to make sure that we find the right way of doing that. And then we have a number of specific issues that you comment quite in detail also in your input to the consultation. We see some of the challenges of long subcontracting chains, where we have exploitation. Some of it is I mean, what is the link? What is the causal effect? That's something we're also, as you know, looking into, where you're making a strong input on enforcement, for example. But here we need to see what is the best way forward. It's also linked to, I think, digitalization, cross-border cooperation, which we will also present in the fair labor package. That comes a bit earlier this year, so at the beginning of the autumn, where I believe personally that a better digital cooperation can also be an important enforcement mechanism in terms of reducing the risks of some of these issues. So in terms of what's going on right now, as you know, we have so we're implementing the part of the Quality Jobs Roadmap that we can do right now. We had the first stage that ended at the end of January. We're looking at the replies. We have 34 comprehensive contributions, among it yours. So that would then lead to a second stage consultation, where we will come out and be a bit clearer, as we should under the treaty, in indicating where we would go further. There is, of course, in this context, as you all of you are aware of this process, the possibility of a negotiation at European level as well. We have from the trade union, the European Trade Union Confederation, we are not seeing a willingness to negotiate at this stage, while the message from Business Europe is a bit more open. We will see how this develops as well. And of course also at sectoral level, etc. And then maybe a few words on social dialogue that we really see. We see as one of the big assets that we have in Europe in terms of managing these transitions that we're going through. And also very much linked to vocational education and training. I mean, the involvement and work at national European level of social partners is really a big asset that we have and that we need to foster in order to handle this very fast changing economy. And we have, the research to see that social dialogue is a real asset when it comes to providing resilience in the macroeconomic shock context that we are constantly going through. But at the same time, we are seeing a reduced collective bargaining coverage. It has declined in 19 out of 27 member states. dropping from 77% in 2005 to 66% in 24. So there is a big challenge at the same time as we need social dialogue more than ever. And here I mentioned the pact. We very much welcome the work you do in the Committee on Temporary Agency Work. But we really would like to continue to support, and in our new budget proposal, we continue our support for social dialogue positively. We just need to convince also Council and Parliament to keep that. I think I'll stop there, and happy to be part of the debate that follows. Thank you very much, Mikael and Mina.
Thank you very much, Stefan. I would like to comment on 2 or 3 things that you mentioned. First of all, our social dialogue. We have just had a meeting of the committee yesterday, and we agreed to work on a new joint project on quality jobs in our sector, and looking at 2 elements, looking on the one hand on the level of social protection for people in agency work and in diverse forms of work. We know that in some countries there are still challenges, so we want to address these in a fact-finding and best practice sharing, capacity building manner. And then we want to look at AI at work and how it transforms our sector, impacts the workers, and also impacts the question of job creation, job destruction. And here we have developed as WEC in the past as a criticism on use of AI. We want to look at how AI is being used in the most ethical way. And of course, social partners have a key role to play there. So we will apply for a new project within deadline in April and hope for a reply then later in the year. Are there questions from our audience or from the other speakers to Stefan? Menno.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michael. And also thank you very much, Stefan, for your overview that you just provided. I want to ask a question which is partially inspired by a discussion that we had yesterday with the commissioner, actually organized by Business Europe, which is, and you mentioned it yourself, the 25% burden reduction that is a generic commission goal. In my view, a Quality Jobs Act or a Quality Jobs Roadmap could be not just complementary, but actually supporting that burden reduction goal. But I would love to hear from you, what's the thinking within the Commission on what that might look like, and what kind of concrete actions in that Quality Jobs Act could we expect that would contribute to that 25% reduction?
Thanks. Shall I reply directly to that?
Yeah.
No, thanks a lot, Menno. And I think as I wasn't there yesterday, I met BDA later in the evening, but I understand it was a very good debate yesterday. I think it's a very good question. First of all, the fair labor mobility package. I mean, it could also have been called an omnibus, no? Because we are really looking at how we can improve our digital tools, how we can make it simpler in terms of managing the mobility aspects on social security and posting, etc. But I think the omnibus label has of course become very one-sided, and so that's one. But I think that will make a strong contribution. Quality Jobs Act, indeed, on health and safety, for example. I'm pretty sure. I mean, again, it's difficult for me now to predict what's going to happen in December. It was always difficult to predict the future, but it has become even more impossible. But I see that we could really do some simplification in the health and safety area. Would we also go into some specific directives? I know Business Europe was putting forward some suggestions yesterday, or would that be a separate initiative later? I'm not sure. But it's clear that the debate on the simplification and competitiveness is not only it goes through all initiatives, no? So I'm sure it will affect the way we present the Quality Jobs Act and its content. But so far, I mean, I haven't really thought about it legally. So if we would include some simplification elements that we hadn't included in the consultation, would that be legal? I'm not sure, because of course under 153 we need to consult social partners of all action, and that would also imply simplification. So on those areas, we will also look into, on the areas we have consulted on, we will definitely also look into simplification issues.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from participants?
I'll hang around, so if there are other discussions later, I'm happy to pitch in later as well.
Then I would like to thank you, Stefan, and I will like to give the floor to Ludovica Matarazzo from Italy, because Italy is one of the very good examples on how social dialogue plays a key role in improving job quality and improving working conditions in our sector. So Ludovica, the floor is yours for your intervention. And
thank you. Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Mina and WEC, for having me today in such an important discussion on the future of quality job in Europe. I'm very happy to take the floor after Stefan. Thank you very much for your insight. And I'm very happy because of the attention of the European Commission puts on the topic of quality jobs that has a main role in Italy. I'm happy to represent Italian agency work system today. Because as Michael told, we have a very developed sectoral bilateral cooperation, and thanks to this dialogue, we are able to support and sustain our workers during all their professional path. What is very unique in Italy, in our sector, is the presence of a sectoral bilaterality, which provides for training and welfare to our workers. So since the introduction of agency work in Italy, so since 1997 by law, a fund was introduced to provide sectoral training. So not only to workers, so not only during their professional experience, but also before their professional experience. So a very specific training. Formatemp is funded with private resources and provides for training, but not only training, because we provide also for sectoral social shock absorbers in case of job losses. I would like to underline that during COVID crisis, the Solidarity Fund, that is the fund dedicated to the sectoral social shock absorbers, provided for wages to all our workers on time. So no delays were in the payment of wages during that crisis. And I think that this is a very important element to underline. A second fund was introduced by sectoral collective labor agreement, EBITEMP. EBITEMP is the fund that provides for welfare and sustain and protection to our workers. So talking about specific training, Formatemp has a very huge target, because we only in the 2024 we were able to train 400,000 people in 1 year. 3 million euros, 3 million hours of training were provided, and 300 million euros were invested in specific training. This is a training very, very linked to the market needs, because we have a rule: at least 1 in 3 people trained by Formatemp has to get a real job after the training. So a deep connection with the market. We provide for training on hard skills, soft skills, but also services in orientation to move through the labor market. So what is very important is that the presence of agencies through Formatemp Fund is during all their professional lives. So before their professional experience with the agency, during their mission, so lifelong learning, and we all know how important is lifelong learning, and also in case of job losses. So a presence during all the life of our workers. And another thing that I think it's important today to underline is that we invested a lot in the recognition of our training, because we think that transparency is something that is really and deeply linked to employability. So Formatemp made a huge investment to become an issuer of a digital badge, a digital instrument that gives that makes skills visible, certified, and what is more important, portable, because a worker has the right to show his skills across employers, across sectors, and why not across countries. So this was another important investment we made to support our workers. Talking about welfare, Habitemp was introduced, as I mentioned before, was introduced by collective labor agreement. So in the dialogue with trade unions, in the well-developed dialogue, we created this additional fund. And this fund provides for support, protection, and facilities, ranging from contribution for kindergarten for our workers, to maternity support, to transportation aid, university tuition fees, accident benefits, personal loans, and so on. So a huge range of support being present for our workers. And here again, numbers are they can give evidence of our activity. In 2024, more than 30,000 workers benefited from Habitemp welfare, and the total investment was more than 15 million euros. So a lot of private, completely private resources given to our worker. A very important thing is that the dialogue with trade unions is the basis for this huge presence. And last year, in July, we were able to sign the renewal of the sectoral collective labor agreement. I heard before that not in every context the workers are covered by collective labor agreement. In Italy, agency workers are fully covered by collective labor agreement. And with the renewal, we were able to increase Habitemp performance by the 20%. In consideration of the high cost that we are seeing, the increasing costs. And also new measures were introduced, like babysitting reimbursement, extra-urban transportation contributions, preschool children, residence and also talking about migration and the need to support our labor market with new energy, the fees for permit renewal. So we are present also in that segment. A new healthcare welfare plan was introduced with high quality medical services. So everything was think to support in all the way that we can do our workers, and finally we can say that agency workers in Italy can enjoy a framework of protection and opportunities fully comparable and in some cases also exceeding those of direct employee. I'm very happy to be here today because and to share our example, because I'm really convinced that Italy can demonstrate that flexibility doesn't mean insecurity. When flexibility is accompanied by social dialogue, welfare, active labor market policies, this can become a driver for inclusion and quality. And Assolavoro, in his job of consultancy with the trade unions, is fully committed in the development of a better labor market in Italy and of course in Europe. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to present our example, and I'm happy to clarify anything that might be not clear. Okay, thank you.
Thank you much. And I have two questions to you. The first one is, it's really an interesting and fascinating story that you brought to us, and a very good example of how our industry can bring change to labor market. What enabled Italy to go that way? What was the key drivers? Because I remember in the past years there were, I would say, ups and downs on the regulation, ups and downs on governments. So what made you grow into that role?
I think that social dialogue is the key, and the capacity to talk to the trade unions and to build strong relationships, and the capacity to understand the market. I'm really convinced that agencies can support the well development of market, and the regulatory framework is important, but more important is the presence on the dialogue with the companies, with our clients, and the dialogue within social dialogue. I think that this is the key of success. And Michael, you know, due to opposite regulatory intervention, we had a real growth in open-ended contracts in Italy. We have a lot of open-ended workers, and they are sustained with all these benefits, all these measures that I was presenting you before. So we are here for them also in case of job losses. So a sector that can provide for support and protection is the key of success.
Very interesting to hear and very good to hear. Just one more question before I open the floor to others might have questions. You mentioned relationship with public services and the public partnerships. Could you explain how that helps young people, helps the labor market, and how industry contributes in that area?
Oh, young people, you know...
the public-private partnerships.
Okay. In Italy, since 2015, agencies are part of the public employment services partnership with the public. So we are in partnership with the public employment services to provide services to people, to the weak part of our market. And so we are now operative on the most important program, active labor market policy in Europe, GOL, Garanzia Occupabilità e Lavoro, the Italian name, funded with the recovery funds. Thanks to this program, more than 3 million people were helped, trained, assessed, and 1 in 3 people were assessed and trained by a private agency. So we are part of the public employment services. We are proud to be in partnership with them, and I think that both the private activity and the public activity can give you the idea of how well structured and well built our sector is in Italy at the moment.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions from attendees, from participants of this webinar to Ludovica? No questions? Well, then I go over to Tom Hadley. And Tom, we have been working together on an EU-funded project in the last year, aiming to strengthen social dialogue and capacity building in our sector. And we have been also working together on many other fronts in the past years. I would like to ask you, on the one hand, to reflect on the project we had, its relevance for quality jobs, and also what do you see as key drivers to create job quality through capacity building?
Great. Thank you, Michael, and good to see you all and some familiar faces. So always nice to be with you. I'll start with a survey actually that came out just a few years ago, and it was one of these surveys of the wider population, and it asked the question, what is the biggest life decision that you make? And they had a list of all the different factors. So getting married, starting a family, what you study, what your politics are. And by far, the number one factor was the job that you choose to do. 77% of people said, my most important life decision is my decision on careers and jobs, which is interesting because that shines a light on how important the quality of job agenda is. It also shines a light, of course, on how important the work of the global HR services sector is. So I just thought it just came to mind whilst we were hearing the discussions there. So going back to the project, Michael, it was a real pleasure to work with you and the team, and with Uni Europa, and with my colleague Tristan Davignac-Demorand, who worked with me on the project. And it was a really great insight, wasn't it? Very practical. And I'll share a few things. When I was reading through the report, and it's a great piece of work, you should definitely all read it if you haven't done so already. There were 4 things. There was 4 areas that came out or jumped out to me around quality of job. And it was the 4 factors that I'll talk about now. One was about safety, because the quality job is a safe job, isn't it? And let's not lose sight of that. So that was one of the factors. The second was development. So are there opportunities for me to progress? That was a big theme, obviously, of the research that we did. The third one's a bit more hard to define, but there was something about a sense of purpose, like a job that gives me energy, you know, that I'm in the right job. I feel that I'm in an environment that I'm enjoying, which is perhaps slightly more difficult to define, but that's definitely a key factor. And the final one, which Ludovica, you kind of touched on there, was how do you create a positive working environment? And this isn't just about the agencies, is it? Often it's about the clients. So how do we work with the clients to make sure that the experience of working as a temporary worker is a positive one? So I'll come on to all of those. So what I thought with those 4, I'll go through them, Michael, and perhaps give an example of each one, because it was very sort of practical piece of work that we did, very case study focused, etc. And I'll touch on that. So safety. A quality job is a safe job. I love this case study because at a time when we were all talking about digital tools and AI, this was a very old school case study, an example. Why? Because it was based on trucks. So hundreds of trucks, well, perhaps not hundreds, but dozens of trucks driving around to the sites where agency workers were. This is an initiative from France to provide the workers with health and safety guidance, mental health guidance, etc. And I thought this was a fascinating example of the industry and the social partners in the agency work sector coming together to make change happen. Nearly 70,000 workers were given advice on this initiative. So again, trucks driving around, going to people on sites, whether it's construction sites, logistics sites, etc., providing awareness. They had sports coaches, they had people trying to prevent injuries. I love that idea. So things about posture, you know, when you're working in a manual discipline, for example. So that again is just one example of many, but where the industry, the sector was taking a lead on the sort of health and safety agenda. So that was point number one. Second one I thought we'd touch on was development. So for many years, people say, well, one of the downsides of agency work is you don't get any training, you don't get any development. We know that's completely false now. Things have moved on a lot since then. And perhaps a couple of examples here. There was an initiative in France, again, called Tremplin, which was based on softer skills. And Ludovica, you mentioned this as well. It's interesting. I would have thought before the project that the majority would be about technical skills and AI skills, but a lot of it is not. It's about the soft skills that are vital for people to progress through work, communication skills. And in this case, it was about confidence. What's one of the barriers to progressing in work, to feeling good about work, is personal confidence. And how you do that. So this was a great initiative. How do you give confidence, not just to young people, but to people who are having to transition in their careers? Some great examples using people's existing skills, creative skills. There were some great workshops on graffiti, you know, doing graffiti artist work, etc., which I thought was fascinating. So how do you give confidence to people and soft skills? Lots of examples around that. And in the Netherlands, a great example of development, I think, is very basic language skills. Language skills. What's one of the barriers to accessing quality work is language. So the fast track initiative in the Netherlands, called the sort of Dutch language budget, I thought was a great example of using bipartite funds to help people to not just access work, but then to progress through work. So again, a really practical example of development. And then the third strand, this one of sense and purpose, energy, this feeling that I'm in the right role. And what this case study, this was a case study from Belgium called the Welcome Initiative, which is very basic. It's just bring people in for a day and you have conversations. You have conversations with recruitment agencies, sometimes with the end clients, etc. And it's basically helping to raise awareness. What are the jobs out there? How do you navigate? In the case study, they call it the employment jungle because it's tough and it's changing. And instantly going back to the AI agenda, apparently this is where there's a lot of questions being asked. What's the point of me going into this sector if I might be replaced by robots or whatever in the future? So that does create an extra level of anxiety. So this idea of providing great guidance to people so that they can access quality jobs that energize them, that give them a sense of purpose, I think was a great initiative. So that was the Welcome Initiative in Belgium. Incidentally, Menno, it's good that you're on the call because I remember clearly the one you mentioned, which was about the watchmaking academy in Switzerland. And what that makes me think is quality of work, quality of job is often very subjective, isn't it? I might be a guy who's passionate about watches. I might be, I'm not necessarily, but what a job that would be to work in the watchmaking industry if I got a passion for that. And I thought that was a great initiative. And again, the basic theme here is how do we get better at raising awareness amongst the wider population, but especially amongst young people, about some of the jobs that are in there in environments that they find energizing. It could be music, it could be sport, but there's so many jobs in here which aren't like being a football player. It's around the back office work, but I'm in an environment that I find energizing, and I think that's an area where the HR services industry can play a key awareness raising role. And then the final one I thought I'd mention that came out of the research was around a positive working environment. So what is a barrier to quality jobs for agency workers in some sectors? Often it's nothing to do with the agency. It's when you get to the client, People don't know who you are. You get there, you don't know where to go. You're not exactly sure what you're meant to be doing. Nobody knows your name. You don't feel you can integrate. So that's not a quality job. But we can turn the wheel on this. And again, there was some great examples, Ludovica, from Italy, wasn't there? Like the GI Group initiative, where part of what they were doing is helping. This was in the case of migrant workers coming over, helping them to integrate, giving them guidance. But a big part of the GI Group initiative was providing guidance to the end client. How do you welcome people? How do you provide a good induction to them? How do you help them to integrate in their local community? So what a fascinating example there of the HR services sector and the agency work sector. So the social partners coming together to create initiatives where you're not just helping the individuals there, but you're helping to shape or to reframe the way the end clients manage their temporary workers. So that was a great example, I thought, from Italy. And Ludovica, I was going to mention it, but you mentioned it as well. The initiatives in Italy where you were providing so much extra support to people, so childcare, personal loans, sort of funds to help with travel, because that's a barrier. That's pushes against quality work. It's hard for me to get to work, so that's an extra barrier. So some great examples there. So hopefully that's given you a bit of a flavour for some of the content. I think the whole theme of the research that was done on this initiative between WEC Europe and Union Europa, a lot of it was about being very practical, as I said at the start. It's about moving on, I think. So it's not about we could do this, we should do this, we might be able to do this in the future. The project was about saying this is happening now. It's not we could, we should, it's this is happening. And I think that's why it was a powerful project, but very much based on case studies. The final thing I mentioned, Michael, is the debate today is around what makes a quality job. It got me thinking about another parallel discussion, which what makes a quality jobs market? What makes a quality jobs market? And for me, it's always been about having choice. So having choice in the ways that you work, but whatever sort of contract you're on, having some fundamental pillars that are in place, such as being treated fairly, being treated with respect, being safe, and having opportunities for progression. And the project that we did together, I think, created a really strong insight into how the HR services industry and the agency work sector are making sure that those fundamental pillars are in place. So I do invite you to go and read the report. I know Michael just put that in the chat. Again, very much case study based, and it'd be fascinating, I'm sure, for the WEC colleagues, but for myself, any other examples that you guys see, do feed us. It's really fascinating. I used to like to go to government meetings and say, I'm not going to talk a good game. I'm not going to say we could, we should. I'm going to give you 4 examples where the industry is making a difference. Bang. So I think this constant flow of practical examples is more important than ever. So thanks a lot for listening. Happy to take any questions.
I have one question to you, Tom, and thank you very much for presenting. We have looked at case studies across Europe, and we saw many differences, and we also saw a certain concentration of good case studies on a couple of countries.
Yeah.
Based on your experience, also with other projects that you are doing with ILO, ITC, and so on, what makes these practices flourish? What are the key drivers of quality jobs when it comes to the market in Europe? What makes it change?
Well, on a sort of global level, but on a pan-European level. So a lot of my work with the ILO and now with the IOE is focusing on business organizations. It's employers. So it's essentially the clients of WEC members that I'm speaking to. But what's interesting is across the world, this idea we need more agility. We need speed. We need to sort of change the way that we manage our workforce. So massive opportunities there, I think, for the sector. And some of this comes about sort of, as you were saying, Ludovica, about reframing the debate around agency work and casualization, etc. And it's, there's some terrible permanent jobs out there. Even if you're in a permanent job, you're not necessarily secure. So it's trying to change the tone of those debates and recognizing there's a massive need. The world's going faster. Even in the public sector, I was speaking to public sector recruiters, and they were saying actually there's a recognition we need to be quicker, more agile. So I think temporary staffing, contract work, interim management is going to be increasingly important in the future for productivity, for competitiveness, but also as a way of providing choice and viable options to individual workers. So I think there's big changes afoot more globally, which do make these sort of discussions we're having today even more important.
Thank you very much. I would like to turn to the audience and ask you to put one word in the chat. What quality jobs and what do you feel is making the difference?
Quality jobs.
Let's put one word in the chat. So I will get back then to Stefan Olsson and ask you whether you have any comments or questions of what you heard.
No, but thanks a lot, Mikael, and thanks to both of you for the presentations. I think what you're catching very, very well is this very complex human predictability issues. I mean, many of the issues that are in the quality of work concept. I mean, we initially when we got the when we started this discussion internally, we were thinking, should we try to define what a quality job is? Yeah. And then we discarded that because we thought, one, it would be a very political issue, but also it is so difficult to find indicators that reflect this complex, comprehensive concept. So we refrained from that because, I mean, there was always this nice prospect of adding a social pillar target on quality jobs, and for that you would need to measure it. But I think that what both of you have shown in practical and in theoretical sense is that it is something where you know everybody needs to be involved and everybody needs to go in the same direction, if you take the issue, for example, of skilling and the importance both for the company and for the individual in this context to be part of the dialogue and have an active role internally in skilling, as in some businesses today. I think I was at a big AI fair last week in Amsterdam. And they say, well, 18 months is now the complete turnover in terms of systems and tasks. And so what we are doing today, what the skills we have today will be obsolete in 18 months if we work in the more IT type of, and that of course requires an enormous skilling. But that is really both necessary for the individual to be able to stay and be productive and stay in the workplace, but also as you explained, Ludovica, that's absolutely essential as well for the employer to remain competitive. So I think there again the issue that you described, that this is something that I think Europe can. The EU and Europe can be really good at. Then comes the question of different culture. Is legislation necessary? Is legislation harmful? There are serious employers, less serious employers. So I think the debate is really, really important. But I'm very happy to see that we're going in the same direction. No? All of us in both the analysis and practice, and I think Tom, you explained all those key factors. So thanks a lot for that.
Right. Actually, Michael, one thing I forgot to mention is we talk a lot about purpose and all these, flexibility. I know that's trust has come up in the chat. I do a lot of work with youth employment organizations, and we ask young people what they want out of work. And let's not lose sight of the basic fact. Do you know what it is? The number one is money. It's money, it's fair pay. I want to get paid. And that comes back to one of the benefits of agency workers. And sometimes I need money quick. I need money in my pocket. And so the basics are still very much in place. It still is about pay, and especially now when cost of living issues are a big challenge for everybody.
That's a very, very true point. And of course, pay is important for our industry. We have equal pay in most countries, but we also have CLAs defining pay. So it's an important discussion. And of course, we had also discussions on minimum wages. There are big discussions at the Commission level on the new directive. So indeed, that's an important element. A last call out to our audience, whether you have any questions or anything you would like to share or bring into the discussions before we close. Mina.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I think it was great to hear from you, Stefan, that the Commission is really open-minded at this stage in the process in defining the next steps based on the consultation, because we are indeed, the world of work and the changes and transformations are really unfolding in front of our eyes. It was fascinating what you said about robotizations and the fact that the workplace in a year or in 2 years is already going to be looking a lot different than it is today. And the agentic AI and robotization is going to change it further. And so it is important to reflect upon how we keep that agility, and indeed in the sort of global context as well, for European companies, for European economies to thrive and to be able to have that agility. What is the best level of action? Is there really an added value? And I know that the Commission is always assessing that, but is it really something like a European level framework, or are there already solutions in place that are most efficient actually locally? And that's where, again, this best practice sharing between countries is so important, because there might already be places and solutions that could work and that do work at the grassroots level. And indeed, we've also looked in our recent social impact report at the multi-generational workforce. So indeed, for a young person, to your point, Tom, it might be actually flexibility as well at the very, the digital natives and all the rest. It's very different generations that today coexist and co-work in the workplace together with all those agents and robots. So it is so complex that I think it's great that we all continue this dialogue and also keep that open mind to in an agile way find the best solutions, both for the sort of regulatory context and also not forgetting investment into the talent and the workplace and the innovation as well on all the topics that we've been discussing. So thank you really from World Employment Confederation side to everyone who participated today, and looking forward to continuing this discussion.
And continuing discussion is a great word, because our next WEConversations in a month from now will be focusing on economics and our economic report, led by my colleague Victoria. You're very much welcome to join then as well. We then have, of course, also our global annual conference in Canada, and we hope to see many of you again at our events. And we wish you for now a good day, and thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
All right. Good to see you all.